Alright guys, Scrappy again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Big drama emerging overnight about a potential major roster change coming through for the Minnesota Rokkr, the team that vanquished OpTic this past weekend in 5 controversial circumstances. It must be said, rumour was, as of last night, accuracy was gone. The roster change that they were considering a couple of weeks ago seemed to have now been coming to fruition. Turns out though that's not quite the full story, but nonetheless, the decision has definitely caused interest given the player that's coming in to replace accuracy for the time being. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new, as always, I greatly appreciate it. Couple of quick things on Black Ops 6. Charlie Intel say they visited Treyarch, they did a presentation. Of course, we know there's going to be 12 what they call new multiplayer maps with 4 additional strike maps, and well, they showed all of them, and what they said was wide range of locations, color palettes, and more. The color palettes, as well, is always something that, you know, Treyarch is pretty well known for. The maps actually look engaging and interesting, and we believe that all 16 of these maps, including the 4 strike maps, will be brand new is what they call them, which is fine. What I'm hoping is that we get some of the old school maps that come back sooner rather than later. We know how the CDL tends to go. The league will start with all the new maps, and then maybe, let's say, what happened in Cold War, they bring back raids, they bring back standoff, they bring back express, you know, stuff like this, and eventually they get added in and played. But if they're there from the start, it's better, right? So I'm down for 16 brand new Treyarch designed maps, but I'd also kind of be down for, you know, just give me raids now rather than having to wait for it. That could be something to consider. There was also this that was spotted, that actually in the UI or whatever, it already says ranked play in here. So you guys can actually see on this setting here, like this is, well, it looks to say ranked play anyway, which is cool if that's true. But at the same time, okay, just because there's a UI menu that says, hey, ranked play is in the game, does that mean the ranked play is there and operational? Probably not. But I'm hoping that it's quicker this time than it usually is. We always talk about it. If there's any year where ranked should not take 4 months to drop into the game, it's got to be this year. The game is polished. Like, Treyarch have had so many years to work on this. Treyarch are the ones that do the ranked play anyway for the current set of titles, so there's no way they can't have it in the game very soon after launch. We always talk about this, whether it actually makes the most sense to put it in at launch, because, you know, when the game first launches, what is your rule set, right? What maps do you play? You're like, we don't really know. But 1 week, 2 weeks after, that should be an absolute guarantee. Now, we also saw the drama on the omnidirectional movement, which is going to be a big feature of this new game. And some of the players, such as Gravity, says, so we're definitely disabling that omnidirectional cheese, right? Like, there's no we're going to play with that. Seems too cheesy. It's classic pro player talk, right? So, anyways, Ghost Hope says, would this be any different to effectively GAing jetpacks? Now, it wasn't possible to GA jetpacks because I don't think you could just turn them off. But you can turn off the omnidirectional movement if you want to in a setting. So that's why it becomes possible for the pros to actually GA this movement stuff. But I made the point yesterday on the Dope Check show, and absolutely stand on this take, that they should not be allowed to do it on this level, because the game that is played by the casual players will be with omnidirectional movement on. That will be the standard, that will be what people use. So if the pros are playing effectively an entirely different game without those mechanics, then it just isn't good for anybody. So I would have suggested, and this is actually what Spinner Spence implies, that the league is going to stop this, right? Because the pros themselves, I would not be surprised if 8 or 9 of the pro teams say, damn, yeah, this omnidirectional stuff's kind of cheese, this Shotzzy guy's cooking with it, we want it out of the game, and therefore the teams decide to get rid of it or whatever between themselves. But at this point, the league, because it's a setting that can be enabled or disabled, are free to step in and say, look, that ain't gonna happen, right? Like, we're gonna make the final decision here and you are not gonna be able to not use that setting. And sure, if all the 12 pro teams really do come together and agree not to use it, then maybe it won't be used. But if at least 1 or 2 teams do want to use it, then everyone's gonna be using it. And as Spinner Spence says, yeah, no, we're not disabling that. Of course, he's from the league, right? So pretty cool, I thought, to see the league themselves. Hopefully this year is finally the year we get more transparency and we get more stepping up in terms of communication from the league, because especially on the GA topics, I think they needed to be harsher on this. You know, we talk about a committee or whatever over the last several years. I think this is a potential opportunity this season for the league to actually step up and take a firmer stand on what they want to do with gentlemen's agreements now and going forward. Just quickly on Formal, because there's obviously been talk from Formal about making a return. He's made tweets about it. There's been lots of discussion on this topic. Where would he go? People have said, okay, if Formal was to come back to OpTic Texas, who would he replace? Would it be, I mean, it's Dashy or Kenny, realistically, right? It's one of the two. But I think more than likely there is probably no room on the OpTic team. So my theory would be, is it possible that he goes to some other team? Because in my mind, Hex would always have the door open for Formal to return to OpTic if he wanted to. Like, if Formal were to leave, as he did to go to Luminosity Gaming and go play there for a couple of years, then come back, would the door be closed to Formal returning? If Formal went to go and play for FaZe, then yeah, maybe that would be, you know, betrayal, I think is kind of how Scub went to describe it. But if, you know, Formal was to leave and go and play for like a Toronto or like a New York, or maybe even, I don't want to say it, but Boston give them a massive bag to rebuild their team because they've got a lot of money, like maybe it's something at least that's worth thinking about, and Formal could do a year or two there and then come back to OpTic as a content creator. I don't know. More than likely he'll just stay as an OpTic content creator, or maybe he'll join their X-Defiant team if OpTic decide to have one, and if X-Defiant competitive is anything near interesting. Attach as well commented on the Virginia server stuff and actually made it quite clear that as far as he's concerned, they've played on plenty of Virginia servers before earlier in the season and lost on them. So it's not like, and sure, their team is a little bit different now. There's Johnny there instead, but Johnny is, he's based out of New Jersey, right? But when they had a Seam, they were often playing on Virginia servers and getting absolutely clapped. So, you know, it is not clear in Attach's mind there's anything to this. And as he says, yeah, we've played on Virginia servers before and we've lost. The servers don't make or break your team. And he's basically making the point, yeah, like excuses from the teams that we tend to be beating. But we've got to talk about this Minnesota Rokkr situation, right? Because this team was meant to be making a roster change. We thought that was going to be the case. The rumor had it a little while ago now that they at least considered, following Toronto's major where they did not do especially well, they were looking at keeping Lins only, getting rid of Standy, bringing Vivid back into their team, as was the case before, getting rid of Gunless, bringing in Dylan Rex, getting rid of Accuracy, bringing in Slasher. That was the rumored three-man change they were looking at, and usually, once these changes are heavily considered, it's kind of difficult for the team chemistry to actually get back to where it needs to be, because if the team knows that, well, you know, this guy was on the chopping block, that guy was on the chopping block, and something nearly happens, it's kind of difficult to actually get all back on the same page. But apparently they then had a big team talk, they talked through the whole situation, they came up with a brand new hardpoint strategy that's going to take it to the top, and all this stuff that we talked about over the last couple of weeks. But still, Accuracy, of course, has been under the spotlight to a large extent because his individual performance has definitely fallen off since the start of the season. Start of the year, he was seen with Awakening. It was all looking pretty damn good in some parts. But then Awakening was gone, and over time, Accuracy's individual level started to come back down to where it was maybe the last couple of years on the Seattle Surge. And then last night, we get rumors that Spart is coming in to replace Accuracy on the Minnesota Rokkr. And, you know, this is obviously a big talking point. Now, we'll discuss the Spart angle in a second, but of course, we've got to really discuss if you are going to make a change as Rokkr, why now? And is this actually the right change? Now, I still do think, yes, they beat OpTic this weekend, which it's difficult to imagine you're going to make a change directly after beating OpTic, because the start of the stage they've had here is not as good as they could have hoped for, but it's not far off. They're 2-2 Minnesota Rokkr. They're at 140 points. As it stands, they are in the qualification spots for the World Championship. So you'd imagine, why would you make a move now? But then again, if you look at their team composition, it's still not great. Accuracy, we know that his individual, like, you know, his gunny, his movements might not be the best. Of course, this was a clip that was doing the rounds of the weekend when they nearly got 5-2 comeback on here, but they do eventually close it out in the round 11 because Lins absolutely took over. This was Gunless's reaction, but Gunless and Accuracy in many ways, pretty similar players. Like, it was a big question that I had when they formed this version of the team. Gunless comes in, you know, slow AR like Accuracy, has some leadership characteristics like Accuracy does. It's very rare, and this is actually a common trend. Even the flank guys often talk about this. You look at their scoreboards after their series, very often what you will find is that you get one AR negative, one AR positive, one SMG negative, one SMG positive, right? And it's kind of happened again because it seems difficult to get both ARs on Rokkr and both SMGs on Rokkr, both all firing at the same time, because, you know, they just play in a pretty similar way. And I'm still not convinced this Rokkr team is that good. I still think they should have considered a roster change, but an Accuracy's level has dropped off, right? There's no doubt about it. These are his numbers this season on average, and this should be pretty much what we could have expected going into the year, right? After what he did on Seattle Surge the last couple of years. What he does outside of the game is very commendable. I think for Accuracy, a player of high quality that probably gets less credit than he deserves, to be honest. But of course, in terms of like raw ability and gunny and whatever you want to say, why he is not the player that often some of the top teams might potentially need. I thought, honestly, after last season, he might have just called it a day and retired then, but honestly, commending to Accuracy that he decided, you know, going to run it back and compete again on a new team and got a pretty decent team together. Top 4 at the first major. In hindsight, very impressive, and that might be the result in the grand scheme of things that carries them to the World Championship qualification. And I think that when Accuracy does decide to call it a day, which, you know, he may or may not at some point, then, you know, coaching would make so much sense. And I do wonder whether this is part of the reason why we haven't really seen Accuracy dropped, right? Is maybe just because if you're a coach, let's just, you know, theorize for a second. If you're a coach of a team with Accuracy on and you decide to bench Accuracy, you know, you might be somewhat fearful that the higher ups above you are going to say to you, hey, you know, thanks for your time, but we want Lamar as our coach because he's going to be the perfect man for the job. So, I don't know. That's just a theory, I guess. But we've talked about it for some time, what the future of Accuracy is here in the league. And the issue is for Rokkr is that their upcoming matches are pretty rough. I mean, they just beat OpTic. So if they beat them, I guess they can beat a number of teams. But, you know, they've got Subliners next, then Toronto, then you've got the Vegas Legion Dynasty, which have been looking unbelievable the last couple of weekends. So that's a tough run. They might be stuck on 140 going to the major, at which point they'll need a top 6 if they want to qualify at that point, I would say, for the World Championship. But the big question is, if this change is true, why is it true? What are they actually doing here? What happens next? Because Jake Hale says, my understanding currently is that Accuracy has temporarily stepped back, but is expected back before the end of the season. Spart has therefore been signed to a 14-day deal. Now, why Spart, I guess, is the big question here, because a player, of course, most well known for the Vulcaning, as people call it, when he won the Stage 2 event with the Los Angeles Guerrillas way back in Vanguard, it feels a rather long time ago now. But since then, yes, he's been to challenges, he's done some okay things in challenges, but it's not like he's been setting the world on fire. And there's a number of players, you know, we talked earlier in the season about Lunars, certainly in recent times about Dylan Rex. He was linked to joining this team. Slasher as well, of course. Now, look, you're not going to sign Slasher on a short-term 14-day deal, but there were probably other options out there rather than Spart for a brief short-term 14-day replacement. But it seems like they've not gone for any of those options, and no, they're getting Spartan instead. Rokkr then confirmed shortly afterwards exactly what the full story here is. That unfortunately for Accuracy, you know, there's a family emergency that's happened, and he's decided to temporarily step down. And you know, we hope to see him competing with us again. So it's not at all guaranteed the way they say this, that it's not exactly like, oh, Lamar's out for this weekend to take care of something and then he'll be back next time. You know, Accuracy saying, you know what, I'm going to step away, and potentially might not be coming back. So absolutely wishing the best for Accuracy and whatever's going on in his personal life, because this, you know, sounds pretty serious, right? It's not like, you know, he's going to head home, take care of something, and then he'll be back. It's like, look, we're Tuesday today, they play this weekend, and Accuracy is saying, look, I'm not going to come back. I can't necessarily tell you when I'm going to be coming back. So Spart's been signed on the 14-day. They may require him for longer, but and look, I think Accuracy as a raw talent individual player, you know, there are better options potentially out there. But if you lose Accuracy from this team at this crucial moment in the season, it's obviously not going to be looking so good, you would think, for their World Championship ambitions. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Just one final thing to mention before we close out the video here with, because while Rokkr are making a change, at least of some sort, the top 4 teams will unlikely to be making a change until at least the end of the season. We'll discuss that later on today. These are, by the way, the champs appearances for those players. So Dashy will this season get to 8 championship appearances. Kenny, aBeZy at 7, Simp, Envoy, CleanX at 6, Scrappy, of course, at 2 is going to be this year. Pred and Sib will get up to 3. Of course, all these teams are going to make it very comfortably. Indeed, Minnesota Rokkr and the Royal Ravens, for example, not exactly in that ballpark, but very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.